This powerhouse Venezuelan-born, Iceland-based entrepreneur who's my guest for today is incredible, and I'm excited about the insights that she'll be sharing around leadership, working in Iceland in many different sectors, and empowering women through the organizations that she's been working with, as well as even a new venture that many of you might be interested in hearing about. And so before I jump into that, though, I have to give a shout out to the sponsor of this episode, Center Hotels. We're in one of the hotels for this In Bed With series, and their hotels are amazing. There's 9 of them all around Reykjavik specifically. So if you're deciding to come and stay in the city, definitely check them out. And if you want to save a little bit on your stay, you can use my code ATI25 to save 25%. So let's jump into chatting with Valentina. I have an amazing trailblazing guest on the podcast today. I'm super excited. Thank you, Valentina, for coming on and I'm sure about to share some nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I'm just really looking forward to all of this conversation.
Likewise.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to all this conversation.
And she's a powerhouse, so be ready, people. And you're originally from Venezuela.
Yeah, I'm originally Venezuelan, yes.
And you've lived in Norway and Iceland.
Yes.
So could you give us a little bit of a understanding of your upbringing? Like, first of all, growing up in Venezuela,
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
Tropical and, hot, sunny, It was fun. It was a lot of fun, because when I grew up in Venezuela, it was at the moment where and when things were going really well in the country. So it was just a lot of fun. I was a free kid, and where I grew up, we had this huge garden with lots of trees. So I just used to climb trees and
Yeah, you just had like what most kids
really
would be fortunate to have. Yeah.
I was really, really fortunate to have really strong people around me, really very good role models.
Awesome.
Yeah, very strong women. It was really cool, but very, very different from Iceland.
Yes, I was going to ask that.
But
so,
the freedom was there.
Yeah.
Because I have 2 kids, and my kids have the same kind of freedom that I had when I was growing up. But of course, my kids had the same kind of freedom that I had. But of course, the weather is completely different. The food is completely different. The culture is completely different. So
even how people might interact with each other too,
interaction,
right?
the touching. That's something that I actually lost.
Oh.
Because people in the tropics, people there are so, well, this saying that people act like the weather.
Yes.
So people are very warm and they're always hugging you and kissing you, and here people just don't touch you.
Yeah.
And
they're
then,
like personal space.
Exactly. Personal space. And then I kind of lost that. So when I meet someone from Latin America and they come and just touch me because they want to say something to me, I'm like,
you're freaking out. You're like, what are you doing?
I freak out. I'm like, why are you touching me?
And they're like, don't you? No? Okay.
Yes. No.
Yeah, it's like, not anymore. No. I have changed. Yeah, there is a book actually called From Foreign to Familiar, where a woman talks about warm climates with warmer way of like interacting and cold climates and how people can like there is
a thing because you see it here too. You see that Icelanders are more warmer during summertime, particularly during sunny days. But comes winter and you know people just
it's like the self-preservation mode or something.
Just, I don't know. You're just cold. It's dark outside. You just want to get things done and make it through the next day and just move on.
And it's funny because personal space in terms of like people are maybe not wanting to hug, but they will like say if you're trying to get something, they want to get something at the store, they'll just like lean over without saying anything. That to me is a very strange like not thinking about personal space, but they're just like, I'm trying to avoid talking to you. So that's like, so it's another type of avoidance.
I know, and instead of saying, excuse me.
Yes, exactly.
Like, may I?
Or even could you hand me that or something? It's like, no, I'm just going to slither in here and pretend that you can't see me.
Exactly. Or just standing there until you move.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
Like, waiting for you to like move so they can get whatever they
want. That was one of the things I was like, I mean, you could just say something.
Exactly.
Because sometimes it's like stealth mode. You don't even see them until all of a sudden they're just there. And Yeah, and I've actually picked that up too, so I can't make it seem like it's outside of my realm. Now I'm just like, oh, is that how we do it? All right, let me just slither. No one cares.
I don't know if you heard about the concept of epigenetics. That your environment makes you, so you become your environment. So, well, yeah.
Definitely picked up some. Not everything, but some. So when did you move from Venezuela to Norway?
To Norway, that was back in the early 2000s.
Okay.
Yes.
And what was that like?
Oh, well, Norway was interesting because I moved to Norway as an exchange student. And that was cool.
Yeah.
And always been I'm just a very curious being. So Norway was really cool. Just moving to Norway, and I was isolated with Norwegian people, and I had to learn Norwegian, and I was just going to school, and just living there and experiencing it all. You know, coming from the tropics and white sand beaches and waterfalls, and rainforest, the jungle, the Amazon jungle, like literally, because I come from the southern part of the country, where the Amazon jungle starts. So it's very common going from there to Norway, where you just have mountains, snow, it's cold, it's different kind of forest, and beautiful. To me, it was just fabulous. The fjords, and to me it was. And I went to this small town with 22,000 people, and I don't know, it was just small and amazing. To me it was just amazing. And we still keep contact with my host family there. Nice. Like, we just went to Norway, spent 2 weeks in Norway this July with them, and we call each other, we talk to each other, like
that's beautiful that you kept that connection.
It is really cool. And and I'm just really happy that I did that, because when I look back, on the hindsight, I somehow life always prepares you to the things that you're going to do. Somehow, because I was living in Norway and I managed to learn the language and just this specific dialect in a specific place, then when I moved to Iceland, I could understand like 60% of what people were saying.
That's fantastic.
So,
which is not the norm at all.
Exactly, not at all. Like, Icelandic is a really difficult language,
including for other Norwegians.
Exactly. So it's very like. Yeah, so we went to Norway this summer, and then my husband, he had the typical Icelandic upbringing. He learned Danish in school, but then he could understand what we were saying in Norwegian. Nice. Yeah, he could understand, and then he was speaking slowly in Icelandic, and they could understand. So it was hilarious. Okay, this is so, this is.
What is the name of the place? Malta. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, well, people are probably going to be like, when I move to Iceland, they're going to flock to Norway. They'll be like, let me get a little bit of introduction. Because I feel like Icelandic can be very daunting for a lot of people.
It can be.
Yeah.
It can be.
And Norwegian is, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but we don't decline words in declensions in Norwegian. Norwegian is pretty much like English.
Yeah, it evolved so much that it's not as complicated.
It's not as complicated. Exactly.
Which is great, but then when you had to come and learn the declensions, how was that for you?
I just learned it by heart.
Okay, you were just like, you know what? I'm not gonna.
I'm like, I'm here. And the thing is that when I moved to Iceland, there were very few foreigners living in Reykjavik. Yeah. Like, the city looked pretty different.
Yeah.
And you were just expected to learn Icelandic.
This is 2004.
2004. Yeah. You were just expected to learn Icelandic.
I mean, at the time, tourism was not a thing like the way it is now. I mean, where there's a lot of English speakers, but also just in general, like the culture was so just more insular.
It was. It was. And also, I was isolated with Icelandic people. So, so I just had to, like, kind of, it was out of necessity. Yeah. So you just learn it, you just go for it. And I just did it. But I'm really proud to say that I had never been to an Icelandic course. I've done everything.
Nice.
Yes, I went for it, and I just pushed myself to speak Icelandic.
Good for you. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what would you give advice for people who are wanting to learn Icelandic? What would you say is like key, or was key for you back then?
For me, I think the isolation was key. Because I had to, like, out of necessity, I just had to speak Icelandic. Out of necessity, you find ways to understand what the other person is telling you. And then you just learn more, and we all have different ways of learning languages. Yeah. So for me, that's what works.
Yeah. So you have Spanish, English, Norwegian,
Icelandic. You know, I've been learning German for a couple of years.
Nice.
It's
Okay.
like that's the only language that I've been like learning.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the other ones just happened.
Well, just move to a German-speaking country.
Yeah,
because Germans are like, don't you speak German, right? Like they're
Yeah, but the thing is that German is like the next logical step for me because I already speak 3 Germanic languages.
Yeah.
So it's like, and Norwegian shares a lot of its vocabulary with German.
Okay.
So does English.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So it's like a next logical step.
My boyfriend was living in Austria for 7 years, and he was similarly. He was working the whole time, and he was just like, I had no choice. If I didn't speak German, if I didn't learn, then I couldn't work, right? And they would curse at him in German. To be like, what, you idiot, learn German? You know what I mean? If you tried to speak in English. So it was like you said, with this isolation, it's like there was no choice. I had to do it. Yeah. So that's awesome. And so you moved to Iceland because of love or another reason?
Actually I was traveling with a friend, and then I met someone.
Okay.
And, you know, my faith was just to stay in Iceland because...
You were traveling here?
I was traveling here. I was traveling here with a Norwegian friend.
Okay.
And then I met someone. And, well, my faith was just to stay in Iceland because after that, I just met the love of my life. And I'm still here, and we have 2 kids. And Iceland is my home. You know?
Definitely.
Yeah. I've been here for 21 years, so it's...
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Going strong.
How are you? How long have you been here?
A little over 9.
Or 9.
Yeah. And have you been back to Venezuela or your family?
Yes, but only like a very few times. Like my thinking that my mom has been here often.
Yeah.
Then I have been back.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did your family feel about you living in Iceland or having lived in Norway? Is there any like, were they wondering, are you coming back? Or you know what I mean?
Well, already at the moment, because of the political situation in Venezuela, I don't think they will want me to go back.
Right.
But another at the time, you know, when it wasn't as bad, I would just go over there, like try to go every year and, you know, once a year. And then my mom will always come and spend Christmas with us. And things like that. But, I don't know, hopefully things will get better and I get to go back and as often as I can. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. But I think that for them, well, there's a lot of people within my family who are living abroad and who have been like living abroad for a very long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're not in Venezuela necessarily.
No. That like they have an aunt that's been living abroad for like 50 something years.
Wow.
And another one living in the States for, I don't know, 30 something years. So it's like very common for people in my family to like move abroad and do something.
Yeah.
So it's very common.
Okay. So I was more encouraged because I was wondering, because sometimes you
encouraged.
Yeah.
And my family is encouraged to like learn languages if you can move abroad and just, you know, because it is about expansion.
Yeah.
You know?
Broadening your horizons.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, why not?
Okay.
Do it.
That's pretty cool. Because oftentimes, not often, but a lot of times you'll find people who are moving out of the country from where they're from, that they're kind of like the odd one in their family or something like that, right? And like their family, you know, it's not all the time, but it can happen because they're, at least in the United States, I'll say, there's like a statistic about how most people only move maybe like a few miles or 13 miles away from where they originally were from. And so it's obviously because I'm from the US, maybe my perspective on it is that way. Whereas in other countries, it might be a lot more who allow themselves to move to other countries and whatever else because it's accepted. Whereas in the US, the mentality can maybe be a little bit like, hey, stay close, or, you know, or maybe the fear of moving too far away, you know.
It could be. But you know, I remember that my family encouraged me to like just go to Norway.
Which is quite far. It's like not even like South America. Let's just go all the way
there.
to Europe.
Yeah, but it's like the opposite of that.
Yeah.
So, just go and experience that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
You know, the same with my cousins. I have other cousins that when they travel as exchange student to Denmark too. So it's like, yeah.
Did any of them stay? Or
No. They're now like living in Germany, but they went back and just traveling and just learning new cultures and new languages. It's something that's just encouraging the family.
Yeah. Were there any culture shocks that kind of still stick with you after making that transition to live like in Iceland, for instance?
To live in Iceland? Yeah. You know, the lack of knowledge of using cutlery.
Okay, I was not expecting that. Okay.
No, I know.
So,
I know.
So let me just explain what you mean by that, because I'm just like, interesting.
Just holding a knife and a fork properly.
Okay.
Yeah. Just do that. And people are probably not gonna like that.
Yeah, well,
But
it's
you know,
okay.
like,
I mean,
it's always like, why? There's only one way. You're doing it wrong.
you know, it is really
You know
interesting.
what I mean?
Because I mean, I don't know how it is in Venezuela, but like in the US, like we switch hands when we're doing like,
Yes, exactly.
and here it's like often people have the fork always in their left and the knife always in their right, and I'm like,
Yeah, but that's like also like a British thing. Like,
Yes,
do you
it
always
is.
have it there?
yeah,
And if you are like using a knife
mm-hmm.
and using a fork, you never turn the fork up
Yes,
while you're holding the knife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's like, you know, people basically have
The
developed their
European
way.
thing.
Yeah,
European thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So I understand what you mean, because I've noticed it a little bit, but I always thought, I was like, maybe I'm just the odd one. But I was like, no,
No.
I think because my mom was really into etiquette when we
Yes.
were younger, so she like taught us like certain ways to do things. It doesn't mean the Icelanders are you know, their way is bad or anything, but it's just different.
It's just
if you pay attention
different.
to
Yeah,
it,
if you pay attention to it, it's just different.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
kinda
but
funny.
I was also like brought up with it. Okay, there's this British way, the European way, there's the
Yeah.
continental way, the one
Yeah.
that, you know, people using this in America. So it's that.
Yeah.
So I'm always like, and I'm always telling this to my husband. He's like, oh my god, you know, like,
Yeah.
stop it.
He's like, leave me alone. It's like, I'm just eating. So, and you've worked for some major companies here
Yes.
in Iceland, and like Model. And I'm just wondering, in terms of being in data management, I believe it was.
Yeah.
We were working in like leadership roles.
Mm-hmm.
You'd mentioned when we were coming up, like chatting in the hallway, that you'd also worked, like these gave you opportunities to work in other different countries,
Yeah,
right?
just traveling abroad. and
Yeah, which
just
is
going.
really cool. And I'm just wondering if you faced any like challenges there, like the clash of working, because it's an Icelandic company. It's a very Icelandic
It's
company.
a very Icelandic company.
Even if it's internationally
Yes.
like
Well,
working.
there were always clashes
Yeah.
with the Dutch. But you know, the Dutch are known for being Dutchy.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, it's but nothing out of the ordinary. Just
Yeah.
like, you know,
Just like normal working.
normal, like, you know, Icelanders wanted to do things the Icelandic way, the Dutch
Yeah.
wanted to do things the Dutch way, and
Which
Yeah.
the Icelandic way, in my opinion, I mean, for Iceland, if you're staying within Iceland, it can work fine. But once you go international, it's a very like people's
it's a different thing.
yes, people's perception or expectation, perhaps is probably a better word,
Yes.
is very different.
It is very different.
And we'll even get into that when it comes to the service industry because of UGrow.
Yes.
Because again, this is like a layer in Icelandic society that's very different.
It is very different.
And having so many international people come who either work in the service industry or who are being serviced, knowing how to like,
yeah.
you know, like meet that need
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
it's
But
fascinating to
I
me.
actually think that it is really good that we have so many foreigners working in the serving industry
Mhm.
because these are foreigners serving foreigners.
Mhm.
So they will know how to receive and treat all these foreigners,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's great.
Yeah,
that there are so
absolutely.
many foreigners, you know, within this industry.
Yeah, for sure.
Plus that is needed in the country because if we want to be thriving off of tourism, then we will want to have all these people that can
Right,
do
who have
the
to fill that work. Yes. I mean, that's another bigger part of the evolution of Iceland. Which I think is
Yes.
fascinating. And you seeing that too,
I've
right?
seen that too, because, you know, when I moved to Iceland, then it was all about, you know, the financial world.
Mm-hmm. Until that collapsed.
That was until that collapsed.
It's like
yeah, but it was
2008.
like this booming.
Yeah.
Just like
Yeah.
money everywhere, money.
Yeah.
And then, poof.
And you were even working for a bank.
Yeah, but I worked for a bank from 2017 until like
Okay, so later.
Later,
Yeah,
it was
okay.
it was later.
There was a recovery
It was
and everyone
like
was fine,
after
yeah.
recovery. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
okay.
post recovery.
That's good.
But yeah, I remember that time.
That time period must have been crazy.
That time was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd heard stories about how Icelanders were just like rolling in the dough before.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Oh,
going on
yeah.
insane vacations.
Oh my God, yes.
And then it was just like a
Everyone,
halt.
like
Yeah.
literally everyone was driving a Range Rover.
Yeah. I was like, what is going on? Like when I heard that. But you know, it's funny because during COVID time, I remember, like, because people couldn't go on vacations, all of a sudden people were getting new houses or renovating their houses and driving new cars. And I was like, where's this money coming from? Like, is everyone just like
somewhere?
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry, I know overdraft is a thing, but like it can't be that much overdraft that you're using.
What? I learned about overdraft when I moved to Iceland.
Me too. Me too. I was like,
what? You do that?
Yeah, exactly. Because my understanding, and I would have to explain this because I don't think most people know what overdraft means here.
No, exactly.
But overdraft to me is you spend or you have a bill or whatever that's a little bit too much, and your bank shows you you're in the negative, and then they charge you a fee, an overdraft fee, right? You've gone over what you actually are capable, but somehow they still let the transaction go through. Whereas here, it's like a line of credit, in essence.
In essence, yes.
Yeah, and it's just like, what? And I didn't know it existed, actually, as a thing, because I thought of credit cards, right? And everyone's like, oh, you pay your credit card back at the end of the month, every month. There is no, like, leftover. So I was like, what's the point?
No, exactly.
You might as well have a
well, you can have some leftover, but that means that the interest rates are
insane.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Just insane.
But if you have an overdraft for years, you're still paying interest.
You're still paying the interest. Yeah, it's like 15-17% interest. It's like
which
really
is high.
Expensive.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, what was your understanding of overdraft similar to mine, or was it different?
I didn't know what an overdraft was.
Okay.
So
then when you came, you were
I was like, can one do that?
Yeah.
But I have to pay that money back.
Right.
So what's that?
Exactly. You don't want to be in debt.
What's the point? Exactly. Because I was taught, you spare for the things that you want to buy. If you have the money, you can go and spend it.
Right.
It's not like you can go, you can spend it, and then you can pay it back.
Later.
No, that was...
Or maybe not. No. Maybe you live most of your life with an overdraft. And that's the thing here. And because I was like, how are people affording? It's like, oh... They're technically not affording it, which is
technically
in the US too. It's a similar thing where people have credit cards or whatever else, and they're not affording their lifestyle, but you just see the things that they have rather than the actual
and you can have like plenty of credit cards. And in the US, you can have like plenty of credit cards.
Oh, yeah. They want you to. I mean, people can file for bankruptcy and then like months later, they're getting a new credit card just like, hey, but then like, it's like a different type of credit card. And I was like, they are sharks. They do not care. Yeah, it's really unfortunate. Same thing with like student loan debt, which was, I think, an interesting question in terms of for you. Like, was that going to Norway, isn't education free there? Or was it free for you when you did your exchange?
Yeah, well, no, my parents paid for it.
Okay, because I wasn't sure how it is for international students. You know what I mean? Because when
but there are things there that just don't have they're not clear enough in my mind for national students.
Okay,
because I know they get like some money from the government when they finish high school and Okay. And it really depends where you're going to study, but education is free, at least. For best I know, like until you finish high school, education is free. If you are like studying in a place that is away from your home, then like the government helps you like to pay for to rent a place in the place where you're studying. It helps you with transport and a lot of things. Like they really help the students so that they can study.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. You have such a diverse background. Mechanical engineering. Pilot training. Yes. I was like, oh, go girl. Okay. Pilot training.
I did that here in Iceland.
Yeah. Awesome.
Aviation Academy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I did that.
How do these things, I mean, as an entrepreneur, you're pulling from many different realms, right? Yeah. So do you see the things that you've learned in these different areas, like when you're working in IT, data management and stuff, coming into play in your entrepreneurial journey as you're like solving problems and doing things?
Yes. I do.
Yeah.
I do. Also because, all of these things just kept my curiosity going.
Mm-hmm.
The good kind.
Yeah.
Like being curious about how things work.
Mm-hmm.
How can I make this work? So it's something that just particularly in the entrepreneurial world, it just, you need to find out how things work, how you do this, how you do that. Because sometimes like when you're like, starting a company from scratch and you maybe don't have the funds to pay someone to do things for you, then you do things yourself and you just make them happen,
Exactly.
So that curiosity there and just to make things happen, you will find out how to make things happen.
Absolutely.
So that, that's just there. And it's coming from that background. Actually.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Yeah, I relate to the curiosity part. That's why I like doing interviews, because I'm just like, I want to learn more. I want to understand more, and not in a like, the benefit for me is just getting a better understanding of individuals, but also like so many people come from many walks of life, right?
Yes.
And you just never know what nuggets they have to share or information or just like life experiences, right?
Exactly.
And for you, because you're a serial entrepreneur and you have a lot of curiosities, how do you go, okay, I'm going to indulge in this one and hold off on maybe something else, even though you might be curious about it?
At this very moment, it's just time.
Okay.
Because,
so that's the only thing that's restricting you. You're like, I had a time machine.
You know, at this very moment, it's just time because, I'm a mom. And I have a 12-year-old and a 3-year-old. And
which is a decent gap between the two of them.
So, and so it's just, at this very moment, it's just time. But I always try to, like, you know, read books and just read articles and research, particularly research, just about all the things that I'm curious about. Yeah.
Nice.
So every time I find some time, I just...
So you give your curiosities a little bit of energy whenever you're basically able to.
It fills me up.
Yeah. Okay.
My energy level to just go up when I learn something new.
Yeah.
Because
it's like fueling you.
Yeah. I'm a nerd.
Yeah. I love when people say that, because nerds come in so many different shapes, sizes, cultures, whatever, and people are always like, "Oh my god, you're not a nerd." It's like, no, believe me. Like
believe me, like, I went into aviation because I literally just wanted to know and understand the fluid mechanics behind a plane flying. You know?
Yeah.
Just
cool.
What's happening around the plane with the pressure and the air and everything. Like, this is the whole movement of things that we don't see it.
Yeah.
Because it's our environment, but you know, the air is a liquid, so it's like, it is.
It's really
you know, like, when you get into it, you're like, wow.
Yeah.
You know?
That's really cool. And also in your pilot training, right? You were flying and doing whatever else.
Yeah.
And so have you gotten your license, or is that something?
Yeah, I have that, but I had never worked as a pilot.
Okay.
You know, I did that. I finished all of that back in 2000. When was the eruption of
2010?
2010.
Good.
Yeah, 2010, 2011.
Okay.
I remember that in 2010 I was still in doing the theory for the aviation school. And then, 2010, 2011, something like that. And yes, but right after that, I got a job at Morel.
You got a what?
I got a job.
Oh, got a job at yeah.
And then,
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, I have to focus on this now.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I got a job there because, you know, the aviation school is really expensive.
I bet.
So, you know, I got a job, and then I was just working, and I just worked my way up, and life happened.
Yeah. Okay. But maybe do you feel yourself going back to it? Is it even like a hobby, you know, or something?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe just as a hobby every now and then, just flying small planes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always good.
Okay.
That's always good. But no, I don't see myself like working as a pilot today.
Yeah.
Like just doing the same thing every day. Yeah.
No. I understand that. I love having a multi-faceted life, and waking up to be like, today we're doing this. You know, like, it feels really nice to have that control.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Did you find...
I love that.
Yeah.
And I know it is, you know, it comes with a lot of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
But because you are within the uncertainty realm, you allow things to flow and things just happen, and you are not expecting things to be a certain way, and just life just surprises you every now and then, and you're like, it's just fun. It's not for everyone. And I know it's not for everyone. People need their routine, and they need to know what's going to happen tomorrow and the next day and next week and next month. But yeah.
Yeah. I think we also need people in the world like that, to be fair, right? If everybody was an entrepreneur that's like, here, there, oh, you know, like, you'd be like,
that will be too much.
Yeah, the chaos would be a little overwhelming. And like, I know for myself, like when I work with some other people who might like do some editing for me or something, it's always nice that they're like really I know when they're available, right? Like for me, people are like, oh, I sent you an email. I was like, I'm gonna get to it. I'm tired. Like I got stuff to do right now, because my brain is just like constantly going. But you know, that's the variety of life, the spice of life.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But look how beautiful it is. Like, you know, for people like us, we're just living in their uncertainty. And then you have people who are just rigid with schedule. That's the people
Yeah.
we need.
Yes. Yeah.
You know? So it's like, we're made for each other.
Exactly. Synergy.
Exactly. Synergy. Synergy. Yes.
And you working in tech
Mhm.
and then becoming one of the co-founders of Women Tech Iceland
Yes.
as a female in tech, right? As a woman in tech.
Yes.
There's obviously a lot of layers going on there, right?
There are.
And it can be that it's not just being woman, but
Mhm.
coming from another culture, doing, you know, like there's so many possibilities for how women in tech show up
Mhm.
and may or may not be received well, right?
Yes.
Just so your inspiration for Women Tech Iceland and you and your other co-founders, the mission behind it. Can you explain a little bit more so people who are not familiar with it can understand?
Yes. So back in the day, we decided to register the organization to provide women with a platform where they could feel safe and where they could share their issues, their problems. They could share who they're really, what they were going through.
Mhm.
And we started having events. Actually, you know, the whole organization started back in 2013.
Okay.
Yeah. And Armina Elia and Paula Gould, they started like the whole idea and the whole thing. And then a few years passed and somehow it died out. And then Paula restarted again. And then, yeah, I came in as a co-founder and we decided to register the organization back in 2020, if I remember correctly. 2019, or, yeah, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't remember the can you tell a number at the
Yeah,
moment?
it's okay. Yeah, because it will tell you the birth date of it. Yeah,
exactly. It's the national registration number. So it
Mhm.
will take you exactly which month and day
Yeah.
of which year. But I don't remember at that moment. And yeah, so we created that. But I do have to say that being a woman in tech in Iceland, I am one of the lucky ones.
Okay.
Yeah, because I got a job. I was always accepted. It was always nice, like working on Morel, working at the banks. It was just for me, you know, I think that the fact that I was different, people respected me more. And I was always, I was brought up by really strong women. So I was always, I am still the person who just stand up and say what she thinks. And I have always done. And I was always respected because of that. But I know for sure that that's not the case for most women in the tech sector in Iceland.
Yeah.
So.
And also strong personalities in general.
Strong personalities in general.
Depending on how you're coming. If you're the outsider coming in, that can also, ruffle some feathers.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But I do think that one of the things that helped me the most was the fact that I spoke Icelandic.
Yes, I was going to ask you. I was like, do you feel that was because
it's different.
It makes a huge difference.
It's just different. Yeah. It's just different. Speaking Icelandic and getting like a layer behind just the language and the words, like the understanding of the composition of the words will help you understand the behavior of Icelanders, why they do the things they do.
Yeah.
And then you just understand it more.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Culturally, you will understand the whole thing. You will understand, what they say, the things they say, why, yeah.
Yeah. I also think it takes down the initial protective barrier that a person might have when they see you, right? They might have a perception and then they're like, oh, you speak Icelandic? And it's like, oh. And then something just like shifts a little bit. I'm not saying it's for every person.
It's safe.
Yeah.
And then they just start speaking,
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, exactly. I've had this because my Icelandic is okay. I'm not going to, make it seem like I'm great at it. And in fact, I'm always working on it, but a piece of me is like, oh God. It's like there's certain words or certain declensions I'm like, okay, I got that wrong. Whatever.
But you don't have to worry about that because even Icelanders do some declarations wrong all the time.
They do.
So it's okay.
But they do it so confidently. That's what that's what I need to do. It's just like do it confidently
do it wrong, but
and don't care, right? And then someone corrects me, I'm like, oh, whatever.
Whatever.
But I do find it like just even traveling, sometimes I've gone solo around the country and say I don't always camp, but if I'm doing a campsite or something, I remember this one guy in particular was an old farmer. And I was just like talking Icelandic to him and he was so happy. Like his whole everything changed. He wanted to make sure I had everything I needed, extra stuff, everything. And like because the other people who were there were just people who were coming in visiting. They didn't live there or live in Iceland. And so he just felt like an instant connection and wanted to chat like most of the night. We were in like the community area and stuff, and it was like really sweet. And he's like, I hope you come back. You know,
But
and I was like, yeah.
imagine, like, I think that they look at us and they say, why would these people come here where people just die in the winter if we have a bad storm and decide to settle down and learn this language?
To actually stay. Yeah, and stay and learn the language, right?
Learn the language. Like, why would they do that? So it's like people do really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. They do. I agree with that.
And that's why, I think that's why they feel just comfortable. And once you start speaking Icelandic, they just open up to you. And that just, you know, yeah.
So since reviving Women Tech Iceland, what impact have you been seeing in terms of the organization and women in tech within the country?
Since what did you say?
Since reviving it.
Since reviving it. Okay. Well, I have to say that the biggest impact has to be recognition.
Okay.
Because there is this lack of recognition for women in the tech industry because it's a really broad industry.
Yeah.
So being able to be the enabler of that recognition for the women in the country is just amazing because they need recognition. So plenty of Icelandic women in the tech sector are doing amazing things and they're not being recognized, or they weren't being recognized. But just seeing that recognition and seeing how proud I am and seeing how they have become role models to you know, younger generations.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Being that trigger. I think that's awesome. Yeah.
Do you think that, obviously tech can be very male dominated. Do you think that women in tech here have been just like, put your head down, do your work, and that's why there might not be as much recognition? Because sometimes we are often not taught to like talk about ourselves, you know what I mean? In terms of, oh yeah, I can do that, and I've done this, and I've done blah, 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 you know what I mean? And like, whereas a guy might have been taught to like say all the things that you've done, and that elevates them within the eyes of other people. Whereas like maybe the women are just like, I'm just gonna get my work done, work really hard, and then maybe someone will notice.
The older generations.
So is it changing?
Yes.
Okay.
It is changing. The older generations, you will see it at the workplace. The older generations of women, they're coming to work, they're going from A to B, doing everything that they need to do, you know? But then the younger generations, they're like, hey, I'm here. I'm going to speak up.
Nice. They're shifting the culture.
It is what it is. So the culture is shifting.
Nice. Okay. That's good
and
to know.
And you can see the shift. Now that you're asking me this question, I just can see the people that I've been working with. And I can see, and it's just different age.
Yeah.
Yeah, different age, different behavior.
Yeah, different expectation too, maybe of your generation.
Yes.
Are any of the older women picking up on that, do you think? Because it's hard to change a habit when you've really formed it for like decades or something.
Of course. Some of them, some of them will see and just find the courage to speak up, or particularly when they find platforms like Women Tech Iceland, they will have where they feel safe, then they will have the courage to speak up and say about the things that they have experienced in real life, the not so nice things that they have gone through at the workplace, and also just to speak up about the things that they are doing or developing because they're also cool.
Yeah. And that's what the part that is a little sad when you don't feel like you can say something and you're like, I know this is cool, right? And but a part of you is like, no, it's fine. Just like, do what you got to do.
Yeah, because particularly women, as you know, to your point, and for the old generations, we were brought up with this, you know, you don't bother people, don't speak up, just behave nicely, just, you know, do your thing. But now it's like, hey, just we're equal, and I get to speak up. It is my right to speak up. It is my right to have an opinion. It's my right to show the world what I'm capable of, what I'm doing.
Right.
So yeah, you can definitely see the change.
Do you see a difference in women who were born and raised in Iceland versus people of foreign origin?
Yes.
Okay, what is that difference? What are you seeing as a difference?
This is something that we had an event this year, and you will see how much harder foreign women need to work to get to the same place as Icelandic women.
Wow.
We had an event this year where you could just see that.
Yeah. Does that mean women, even if they're mixed heritage and Icelandic, who are born and raised here, it's similarly that women who are coming from somewhere else are also having, you know what I mean, in comparison.
When you're coming from somewhere else, the things that having to navigate the culture, having to learn the language, having to, not only the Icelandic culture, but the culture at the workplace.
Yes, which is very different.
Is very different.
Yes.
So there are different things, and it is much harder for someone of foreign origin if the company is not aware, because there are companies that are aware and they are doing their utmost, like really they're going to extremes so that foreigners that they are bringing to the country as employees can find their way in Iceland.
Yeah, that's great.
Thrive and bloom.
Yeah.
But you'll see a difference. You'll see a difference. It is so much easier when you are Icelandic and you do like the usual. You go to school here and then you go to university here.
It's the connections.
You go to school, like high school, you go to Veslo and Med, and then you go to university, one of the universities, and then you go do your master's in Denmark. You come back and you get a job, and then it's so easy to just fly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The pathway is more clear.
The pathway is more clear. But when you're a foreigner and you don't know anyone and you don't know where to go, like whom to connect to. And that's why we also have like all of these events in Women in Iceland, Women Tech Iceland, because it provides these women, the foreign women, and also Icelandic women. Yeah. With a network.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the safe space, is your events
it is,
where these topics are being discussed and people are able to be really vulnerable or open. And
I really love the fact that we're discussing these topics with Icelandic people too. So it's like, it's not about, we foreigners, we know how things are, but sometimes you need to like help Icelanders a little bit. Just, hey, no, this is not how things usually happen for foreigners. And then they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
so
I mean, how would they know, right?
Exactly. How would they know? So, of course, like, we just help each other. So it's,
And I think that's great, because also coming with an open mind of like, sometimes people can be very harsh on like, you're not doing it this way. And it's like, well, if I've never had to, right, and it's worked out well for me, then I'm not changing, right? But but now that there are so many more foreigners, like 1 in 5 people living in Iceland are of foreign origin. And it looks way different than what people think, right? Like you see me from the United States, and even though we have a lot of United States people who visit, there's very few people from the United States who live here, right? In comparison to like Polish people or like from, in terms of the numbers of people that live here of foreign origin, most people I think would be surprised if they're not familiar with Iceland, like who, has come to work and live here, right? And even Venezuela, I don't think there's very many Venezuelans that live here.
Well, actually, I don't know many, but I know that there are plenty.
There exist.
There are plenty. But I don't know many. Yeah, but there are plenty. There are plenty.
I mean, I know at one point there people were coming over, but I still think the percentage is still smaller than the larger numbers.
Of course, it will be smaller than the Polish.
Yeah, like Eastern Europe type.
Or the Polish or the Romanian or it will be way smaller.
Yeah, so it's fascinating because we're all out here. There's so many different nationalities that are out here, and it's sometimes I'm like, oh, like when you go to like a gathering or something, that might be even a national event, and you're like, oh, where are these people from?
Yeah, exactly.
like, how come I've never seen you? And they're probably thinking the same thing when they see me. How come? Like, where are you coming from?
Yeah.
But I think that's also great too, because it's, as much as Iceland is a lot of Icelanders, which of course it's Iceland, right? The demographic, the way that it's shifting, and then like you were mentioning, in the way that like people working in tech, for instance, or women in tech, has needed to shift too, because they need the talent.
Yes.
But not knowing how to cater to the talent makes it less likely that you'll have the talent, right? Or like that you can retain the talent. And I think that's a huge thing. It's just making people feel like they're a part of the integration rather than just you over there do your work and then that's it.
Yeah. Yes. Definitely. Particularly now that, we know the government knows that they will need international talent if we want to keep with the GDP. So, yeah.
At the same time, they're cutting
something about that.
Education for Icelandic. I saw it this morning, and I was like,
yesterday, I called the education for teaching Icelandic.
Yeah, and I was like, that's the opposite of what we need to be doing right now.
They cut the budget, yeah. And
Yeah.
also they cut the budget for, and this is just not good news because they cut the budget for diversity, inclusion, and
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah, there's a shift in general in the world
equality,
that's happening.
diversity, inclusion. Yes,
Yeah.
they cut the budget for that, and that's actually just sad news, particularly because, well, you want people to integrate.
Yeah.
You want people to
You
learn
need
the
them
language.
to.
You need them to. So why
Yeah.
would you cut the budget for that? But hey.
Yeah.
Not my decision.
Right. Exactly. And we all.
I don't know.
Yeah, we all keep going, do what we need to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which brings me actually to your newest venture, UGrow, and how it's specifically focused on the service industry.
Yeah.
Which I think is really fascinating because that has, I mean, especially when I came in 2016, I was in the tourism service industry.
Yeah.
I was working as a content marketing manager for a big Icelandic travel company, right? And it was great. I've been very fortunate also. Like similarly, like I've not had issues with people like, you know, in the company being open to me and my ideas and whatever else and being able to move on to like an agency. But it is fascinating how many people of foreign origin work in the service industry.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not the most well taken care of industry in here because sometimes it's a bit undervalued, I think, even though it brings so much value to the country.
Yes, I know. But I think that because of what happened, like, and I'm talking about what happened in 2009 when, you know, the economical crash that started here, the country needed to rebuild itself fast. And then they leaned towards the tourist industry. And things were just happening so fast.
Yeah.
I remember people talking about the fact that they were like the first 2-3 summers when all of a sudden, you know, they released this huge marketing campaign about, you know, Iceland. They just come to Iceland, and then people started to come really fast. Then they started to like travel to Iceland just quickly, like over the next summers. How I remember people talking about, you know, they just needed to build hotels and needed to, you know, just fix things on the go and just building things on the go because they couldn't keep up with the amount of people that was coming. So there's a lot of things that, you know, well, you know, the terretas mentality.
Yes,
there's a lot of things were they were done like that. Yeah, the first years. When
it's like everything would just be fine.
Yes,
just do something.
When everything was just started to bloom in the tourist industry, then the things were done like that. They were done really fast because they had to do things really fast.
I mean, who knew that after the economic collapse, that eruption, the Eyjafjallajökull eruption, would spark so much interest, right? It's like the land giveth and the land takes away. Exactly. You know what I mean? It's like
first like Europe, the mainland Europe, they were hating us.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because you know the planes, people were stuck all over the
terrible.
place, and it was like summertime. So I was stuck in Italy.
Really?
I went to a wedding and then I got stuck in Italy. Like, yeah, but you know.
Not a bad place to be stuck. Yeah, I was gonna say.
I was like, hey, I was in Italy. So, hey. Yeah, but yeah. Like mainland Europe, I remember they were just hating us because, the air traffic was down.
Yeah.
But then that just was the big trigger for the tourist sector in Iceland just to start flourishing.
Exactly. Which is great. And at the same time, the service industry, I think, has been trying to find its footing. Right, like there's been always like a constant trying to balance because, like you said, it's continuing to grow.
It's continuing to grow,
and there's a need in different parts of the service industry. So, what is UGrow doing to help with that? You know, it's in order to kind of like strike a good balance.
We are helping with all the recruitment. You know, we are then in part of just seasonal recruitment, yearly recruitment, because that's something that happens, and it's the amount of people that is needed during the summer season.
Yeah, okay.
And it's the people that are coming, and then you have all these companies needing all these people, and what we do is that we streamline the process.
Okay.
Yeah.
So taking care of like applications.
We take care of all of that, and we have this amazing database that we have been where we have been gathering all this information of all these people who are just already screened and interviewed. And so when people need, well, where companies need employees for the season or yearly employees, they can just come to us and they can trust that the employees or the potential employees that we're going to send their way for interviews have been background checked, reviewed, screened,
well vetted.
Yeah. So we take away all that very long and tedious process, because you can just imagine all the amount of foreigners that are applying for all of these positions here in the country.
Right.
Like we have thousands of foreigners coming from Europe just to work.
Yeah.
During the
summer. So you're only working with people who have the kind of easier legal ability to come to Iceland, or do you work with people who are also outside of Schengen area?
No, at the moment we're working with Schengen.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to ask that because I know people are gonna be like, "Hey, help me!" And I get messages often and be like, "How can I move to Iceland?" And I'm like, there are a variety of ways, but if you're not in the Schengen area, it's very difficult.
Exactly. We get the same kind of messages too. Like, how can I would like to work in Iceland. How can I do it? But you have someone coming from, I don't know, Malaysia. Like, how? That's just very, very difficult unless a company here needs someone with your skills.
Yes. And it's not to say,
no.
I have this, because this is a point where it's not that some people's skills aren't needed. There's other barriers around it too, right? Like, even if you think of the medical field, I know that's not necessarily where you're focused, but in the medical field, there is a lot of need. And yet Icelandic language, if you don't have that, that's already a big strike for most people. But then the legal ability to live here, right? That is probably the thing that pushes away most people or makes it impossible at the moment.
The legal ability to live here is really important. Just really important, because if you're just able to move to the country, it will be easier for you to find a job here. And companies will want to work with you because it's easier for the companies too.
Exactly.
So it is what it is. It's Europe.
Yeah. Sorry. I have to ask though, because, just in case people want to know, because I don't want your inbox to be flooded with people being like, from all over being like, please help me. You're like, that's not what we do. But if you do find a way to legally live here and you're looking for
a job within the service industry, reach out. Hello@UGrow.is.
Yeah, or even people who, because there are people who are living in Iceland of foreign origin, and they're often on Alfred or something like that and trying. And that is a landmine of maybe it's a good opportunity, maybe not.
Maybe not. I know, and you have so many people applying for the same position. Within Alfred, it's just,
And are you and your co-founders specific about what companies that you work with too? Because there's some companies that are a little sketch. Is there a vetting process for who you work with?
We are very strict on, legalities. People that, do just legal businesses. We don't want to work with companies that, there are companies that pay black money. Or things, things like that.
Or not paying.
Things like that.
It all happens,
Yeah. We avoid those.
Okay.
Yeah. Because we want to, it's it goes both ways. We want the employees to get amazing people, but we want these amazing people to be taken care of by the employees. Okay. So we have to make sure that we place them in good places.
Yeah. So the gap that you're filling in the industry is you have the talent that would work for this particular thing. So that takes, time and money away from the companies having to do that.
Exactly.
And then that you would feel good about placing these people with companies that you have vetted
and they're gonna get the chance to flourish in whatever they do. Exactly.
And how is it in terms of that? You mentioned summer, so when summer falls off, is it a big dip, or is there
actually we had a meeting with a client this morning because there is this big issue all around the country because we have a lot of kids, and when I say kids, I mean people that are educating themselves. They're at university and they're coming to Iceland for work during summertime. But then universities start late August. But the summer season doesn't end until October.
Yeah.
So there is a gap there, of 2 months. where, you know, companies they just need to fill the gap somehow.
Right, okay.
So it's always like, yeah.
So it's interesting. Okay, so if there was slightly older people who can fill this, who don't have the obligation of school.
Well, yeah, but it's like a different way. Like, these people know that they're only going to be hired for like 2 months. Because then it's like winter time. Winter time comes, the winter season,
it's
and
very
then
slow.
everything is very slow. So it's like, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
Where do you see the most amount of people in the service industry being placed? Is it like in hotels or in specific like tourism companies? Like where's the larger numbers of where people are working?
Oh, to what I have seen, it's just hotels.
Hotels. Is that the
we
biggest?
keep on building hotels.
Yes.
For some reason.
Getting rid of housing for hotels, basically.
Like, you know, just hotels. It's this new huge hotels that's being opened up north.
Yeah.
There are plenty of hotels being built at the moment here.
Yes, downtown. It's crazy.
So it's yeah. And yeah, I always, you know, I tell this joke to my friends that when we grow old and we need to go to the, what do you call it again?
Nursing home.
The nursing home?
Or old folks home.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The nursing home will probably just end up in a hotel downtown because they're going to be empty.
Yeah, we converted them all to at least it'll be nice rooms, I guess. But yeah.
You know, there's so many hotels for such a small country. Like the amount of hotels is just crazy.
Yeah, the sustainability of it is really hard to understand because it's a lot based off of projection of what people think is going to happen.
Yeah.
And everything has its turn, right? Like things have its peaks and valleys. And that's why, you know, being able to pivot. And it's like, how do you pivot a hotel that you just built for like hundreds of millions of
nursing homes?
Yeah. It's like you have your solution right here. You'll be like, I'll be ready to help you. Don't worry. So like, yeah.
I'll move downtown when I'm like 85 years old.
Exactly.
Yeah, and particularly here, like you know what's gonna happen in terms of everything's so volatile.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know.
And also the landscape
the landscape, like, you know. Yeah.
And the type of tourists.
The type of tourists, like
Chinese tourists are increasing much more than, you know, just even demographic of who comes and how to cater to them.
Oh.
Because westernized hotels might have a certain way that they cater. Then you have people coming from the East and they're used to, you know, having things. So it's like even just cultural understandings.
Yeah.
If it shifts from being more westernized visitors to more Eastern visitors, how do you, and if you build your hotel a certain way that doesn't accommodate that, right? Like it's kind of fascinating to me to think of it.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that. It's like maybe, well, because you have worked in this industry, like within the industry, because what we did, you know, we're like helping with the recruitment. Do you think that, for example, all of hotels are Western hotels? Well, we'll consider like a Western hotel.
From
like
my
a restaurant is a Western restaurant. They just cater to Westerners.
From my experience of living in the West and visiting some places in the East, I'm not gonna make it seem like I'm an expert on Eastern things at all, but I remember having at Icelandic Mountain Guides, which is the company that I worked for when I first moved. We had a consultant come in talking about China, because before COVID happened, China was, the growth of Chinese visitors was incredible, right? Even to the point where we had hired like a person to specifically focus on getting on platforms for like Chinese, you know, blogs and video and whatever, like China's version of this that you would find in Western countries. And even things like having certain amenities like the teas and, you know, just like making people feel like they're welcomed and you understand, or the ability to maybe even have certain foods in their hotel room. So yes, I do think that we very much lean that way, because for such a long time, and it's still the case, that people from the United States, or at least from North America and UK as well, are the biggest visitors.
Yeah, and France.
And France,
the French are huge.
So being able to, like, if that shift happens, it's not to say that it definitely will, but it could.
It could.
The more Chinese people that are coming, they're coming by the busloads, right? So there's the people who are coming because they are afraid, because they can't speak the language per se, right? So they have to be with a group.
Yeah.
But then you have a lot of people who are no English, who are coming from different Asian countries, traveling on their own. And how do you cater then to them as well, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, I do think about it, because I have a good friend who's Indian, and she was even mentioning like and she's like, her family's pretty wealthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she was even mentioning like Western hotels are so boring. Like even just the way that they look at they're boxy, and especially in Nordic countries,
Oh,
they're
my God,
very
yes.
boxy, right? And so she's like, and for the money,
Nordic minimalism.
right? It's just like for the money, like I could have this ornate, amazing place in India that really like speaks to you, you know? And not that she doesn't have an appreciation for it, but she's like, but so many of them just look alike.
Yeah, that's
True.
true.
It doesn't have any character. And I was like, interesting. So even just that mindset around like value for what you're paying for and experiences, and granted, I mean, okay, you're not coming to Iceland to stay in your hotel room most of the time, but still, you want that to be a part of your experience. And I can sort of see some of the companies, like Blue Lagoon, for instance, right? They're doing things in their hotels to set them apart. And just as like some of the other companies are, some of the boutique hotels, because they realize that like if we all look the same, then it's always like a race to the bottom. Everyone's just looking at what's the cheapest.
Yeah.
Right. So if you look the same and I can't really understand what the value proposition of your establishment is, then I'm just gonna pick somebody that's cheaper that looks the same. Right.
Exactly. So, or why would I go there?
Right. Exactly. So that's So I do see for sure. And if you know how to cater to people coming from a different culture, that already sets you way far apart.
Yes.
Just even having signage or documents in their language. Again, like we talked about with Icelandic, right? Like it gives people this safe feeling.
Yeah.
And that you cared, you made an effort.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Like, you know, when you read something in your mother tongue, you can, you know, to your brain, it's like, I can go there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here. Like, you know.
It's a respect too, right?
Like,
So I think that's a big part of it. And I think in the service industry too, it's like the shift from in selfish perspective about like what are you going to give me to like how do I service you enough that it benefits both of us.
Yes.
You know? That's how I see the service industry. But I think that sometimes people get caught up in like, well, what do I get? And it's like, well, you're not going to get a whole lot if you only think about yourself, right? Because it is a customer service job. Like that is the point. So I find that those things I think about a lot as somebody who like does content too and is trying to like provide a perspective, which is very Americanized perspective. I get that. But it is nice to hear people from different places chiming in to be like, oh, where I'm from, it's like this, you know? And I'm like, oh, okay. Because that gives me a better idea of like how maybe unconsciously you make decisions, you know?
Yeah. Because you're making all the decision based on, the unconscious ones, based on what you know.
Yeah. Exactly.
Based on what you have experienced. Understandably,
exactly,
because we don't know what we don't know, so like
exactly. So you can't analyze what you don't know that you don't know.
But being conscious about the fact that people experience things or have experienced things in different ways, and you want to know how that was, because that will just give you a different perspective. That's cool.
Yes. And even at work, really cool. Right?
Even
like
at work, yes.
Yeah, for sure. And you'd mentioned, like, when you sent over your bio that you're really interested in, like, neuroscience. And neuroplasticity and all of that. So do you find that integrates into your work and life, and how so?
Well, particularly in my life, because it's all about behavior. Yeah, you know, how we behave towards each other. And I look at people and just, you know, their behavior, and it's just really interesting to me that people say things and then they go and do these things. Like, you know, you can see the thread of integrity, so that what they think, what they say, and what they do are aligned. It's just, to me, that's just, it is fascinating just to get to know people.
Psychology.
Just a little bit, just get to understand that. And, you know, and neuroscience is just but we're talking about experiences, and we're talking about like how people just have experienced life in different ways, and it is just ingrained in our nervous systems. And it's just like we go through life and we barely think about the things that we're doing. You're driving, and that's right there, your subconscious mind doing all the driving for you. And sometimes you don't know how you get from A to B. You know that you're sitting in the car and you're driving, but you're like on autopilot.
Yeah, it's like a meditation almost.
And just like that's your subconscious mind just doing that for you. So I'm just fascinated by that. Yeah. And neuroplasticity, because we're able to change all of that. We're able to change, like, you know, every time you keep repeating a certain behavior, you get the same results.
Yes.
So if you want to change that result, change that behavior.
Yes.
But it's really difficult to change the behavior.
I was going to say, it's always easier said than done.
Exactly. It's part of, you know, it's part of your nervous system.
Right.
It's part of, it's part of who you are.
Yeah.
But if you want new things to happen to you, if you want, you know, new results, you need new behaviors.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, neuroplasticity, because that's how you teach your brain.
Yeah.
That's how you adopt
new
behaviors.
And the belief in it. Because I think for me, right, if you're saying to yourself, oh, well, I'm 40 years old, I can't do this anymore. I've heard people say that. I'm like, what are you talking about? My mom, 70 something. Actually, I probably shouldn't say that. But my mom is experienced and aged. And she's fabulous. So much fun. And she's one of the people, ever since I was 8 years old, I used to say that my mom was my hero.
Yeah.
Because she has always allowed herself to reinvent herself.
Beautiful.
You know, and so it's like she wants to do new things. There isn't this idea that she's restricted because she's gotten older. If anything, there's a freedom, right? Because she's experienced a lot, she understands. And of course, it doesn't mean she's never afraid. And my sister is very similar. So I come from a family of strong women as well, right? Yeah. And so it's really beautiful to see them like trying new stuff. I try new stuff. And we're all like secretly freaked out. We're just trying to like make it work. But there's something about it that's so exciting, and believing that you're capable of doing it.
Yeah.
I think the neuroplasticity part is so much that they've restricted themselves to believe that they can't.
Exactly. Or that after a certain age, they cannot.
Yeah. Or it's unacceptable. Yeah. And it's just like, what do you mean?
Like, and that, you know, that I find fascinating because that old way of life that's coming from the Industrial Revolution, where people just learned something and they did that until they died, is obsolete. Yeah. And you see that here in Iceland, and I found that amazing. Icelanders reinvent themselves over and over and over, and they wear many hats. Yeah, you know,
I love that.
Like the one, I don't know, you have an actor who is also the lifeguard at the swimming pool.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, what?
The Swiss Army knife of people. So I think of it.
And you can always do new things. I mean, we are these beautiful beings going through life. We're always changing. That's the only constant, that we're always changing. So why would you do the same thing for the rest of your life if you're not the same person as you were 10 years ago?
Tell 'em.
And you know, you are allowed to reinvent yourself and try new things. And you know, you of course you're also allowed to just study something, you know, just go into the workforce. If you don't like it, you're allowed to start something else. Nothing.
Give yourself permission.
Exactly. Give yourself permission to do that. But we're still in the, you know, we're asking kids, like here in Iceland, 20-year-old kids, because that's when they finish high school. We're asking them to what do you want to be doing in 20 years time?
Living.
So, I want to be happy or something. I don't know. Learn that. Yeah. You go to university, learn that, and that's what you're going to be doing when you're 40. Right. Still. Yeah. That's just not sustainable. Yeah. It will make people really unhappy because again, we're always changing. And
I resonate with that so much. We were at lunch earlier talking about how I grew up in a family, we don't have any doctors, but they really wanted me to be a doctor. So it was designated as the person in the family to become that. And it was a lot of pressure. Right? And so when you eventually go like, I don't really want to do that. And there are people who've gone through medical school, law school, all of that. And then afterwards they go, crap, this was not for me. Or they went through even working and they're burnt out because they had this expectation and that's what they were supposed to do, their role.
Exactly.
And I resonate so hard with people who say they went to college and everything changed for them. Yeah. Right? They got the chance to explore a little bit and maybe get away from the pressures of like their home or something. And like you're saying, it's like in your 20s in general is quite young to feel like you're cementing your absolute what you're going to do.
Exactly. It's too soon.
Yeah.
Too soon. And, you know, if you want to do something, okay, go and do it. But if you want to do something else 10 years later, you're allowed to do so and give yourself permission to do that. And then when you're 40, you want to do something else, just please go ahead. Yeah. You know, exactly. As long as you're happy, just please go ahead. If you need to pivot, just pivot as many times as you want to.
Yeah. Which brings me into my question about it doesn't have to be for young women either, because I feel like we're often saying like, oh, well, what would you say to the younger generations? I think women of all ages, since you are working, especially with women in tech or whatever else, and you're seeing these different like generations of people, what advice would you give to an individual who is really trying to like expand themselves? I mean, we already talked a little bit about pivoting, but like, what do you think would be?
Okay, this is gonna be a little bit of cliche, but you know, it's love yourself.
Love yourself.
Love yourself. And by that I mean set up healthy boundaries. As soon as you see a red flag, run away.
Yes.
Don't like, you know. Yeah, green flags are welcome, red flags, I don't know. Yeah. Always. Every time you decide to look the other way, when you see the red flag coming your way, you end up hurt, you end up just, in a place where you're not supposed to be. Yeah. And you know this. We all know this. And so how many times have happened to you that, you know, you probably, I don't know, met someone like, I don't know, an employer or an employee, or just had a relationship with a person, not necessarily a romantic relationship. Yeah. And then there were some red flags that you decided to omit. And then how did that end up?
Usually not well. I mean, for me, it's usually been that I had to leave, meaning I chose to get out of that situation. Thankfully, I had the option to do that. But I have been with it. I'm like, what is going on? And it wasn't even that the person was necessarily saying anything to me, but I saw how they were treating other people. And I had already started. And I was like, ooh, it's coming my way, right? And and then eventually you start to feel that like energy being thrown at you and you're being like, no.
Exactly.
And it's hard because when your security is bound to having this job or this whatever, and you think that like you don't have any choices, you stay and you take the abuse. And I was like, nah, I'll just have to figure it out because I'm not. Yeah, that's
the thing. That's why, you know, just love yourself because, and this is very important, we teach people by what we tolerate. Amen. If you tolerate some bad behavior, something, you're telling the other person it is okay for me every time you behave that way, and they're gonna continue doing so. Yeah. So loving yourself is just respecting yourself well enough just to walk away from situations.
Yeah, that's great advice.
You know that I'm not gonna serve you
right
in any way.
Yeah, I love that. And I know you said it's cliche, but it's cliche for a reason.
It is cliche for a reason. That's true. So healthy boundaries, listen to yourself, and don't reject yourself. You know, this is something that I learned from my therapist actually. Like she was like, every time, Valentina, every time you tell yourself that you're gonna go to the gym the next day, and then you don't, you're rejecting yourself, you're rejecting your health. Every time you say that you're doing something for the betterment of yourself and you don't, be it like, you know, going early to bed or waking up early and going for a run, or you know, and you don't, you're rejecting yourself. And then you are teaching yourself how other people should treat you, because that's what you get used to. Then we go again to the neuroscience part, and you get used to that.
And you're also what you're giving to yourself. Breaking your own self-trust.
Exactly.
Right? So,
Exactly. So, love yourself. That's the advice. Yeah. Healthy boundaries. Awesome. Okay. Take care of yourself.
Yeah. And in leadership positions, how did you see that play out for yourself? Did you find that if someone was crossing a boundary, that in this position where you're maybe over other, you know what I mean? Like how do you navigate that? Because I feel like that's a very different
that's the thing. In the leadership positions at the beginning, you know, when I was having like the first leadership positions, I would sometimes let people cross a line, and then I will pay the price for it. But you know, I had to learn, but you know, just trial and error.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had to learn, but that, you know, that put me in a place today where I can tell you, like, healthy boundaries, set up healthy boundaries with everyone, like even your family members, because we're all individuals. So it's like healthy boundaries with everyone. Yeah.
It's the easiest place for it to slip is your family.
Yes, exactly. That's true.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
It is. Because it's like you're around them so much.
Yes.
And you're just like, oh, this time. And you're like, oh my God, why did I do that?
Yeah. It's like, you're like, but this is my mom. This is my sister or whatever. You're like, no. And I'm known for being like I can be very harsh sometimes, but it's coming from a place where I'm just taking care of myself and I have to.
Yeah. And your family has understood that about you? I'm guessing.
Not really.
Okay, they're like, this is annoying. Stop telling us no.
Exactly. Not really. But I'm like, no.
Mm-hmm.
And I just hold my ground,
Yeah.
you know, because I have to. Because sometimes, like, you know, you have people who are doing the work and are understanding all of this and but you also have people who are not doing the work.
Yeah.
And they don't understand why you're holding such a strong boundary.
Yeah.
Like, why? We're family. Yeah, because we're family.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You
Some
know,
of the worst offenders, actually. are
like because we're family. Like, no.
And how is that in Iceland then? Because you have your Icelandic family.
Yes.
Right? And you have your Venezuelan family and stuff like that. So do you see a difference there when it comes to how you...
It's different.
Yeah.
And it's completely different because like we were discussing at the beginning, like people are warmer in tropical countries and they're like on top of each other. Not here. Not here. Everyone is like in their own place, in their own like space. So it's like, to me, it's more difficult to cross a boundary.
Okay.
Although it happens.
Yeah.
But it's kind of more difficult that they are going to cross a boundary.
Okay.
Yeah.
They have to, it's a bit more effort maybe.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's more difficult.
That's fascinating. And how has it been because you mentioned with your children, they have freedom, but it's still different than maybe like how you were growing up, right? What differences were you seeing there?
I don't think that many differences.
It's not that much different. Okay.
No,
Maybe just an actual environment itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But, you know, I was doing the same stuff that my oldest is doing now.
Okay. Nice.
So I had the same freedom. Well, maybe like he can go out and come home at 9:30 in the evening. My mom wouldn't let me do that.
Okay.
Like, you know, be home by 8.
Yeah.
Like, you know, things like
It's
that.
a little bit more restrictive.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, just...
Yeah. Because it's nice that you came in to a society that has a lot of freedom for kids and you experience that.
Yes.
Because it's different when it's the other way around and people are like helicopter parents. You know
Yes.
what I mean? It's just like, I'm afraid for everything. It's like, it's fine. These kids are fine. To be fair, though, I grew up in a place where my parents were definitely making sure we were okay because it was like Bushwick in the 90s and 2000s, right? It was not exactly the safest place in the world. We did get to go out inside and play, but like our parents had to be able to know that they could call us.
Yes.
And that would be fine, right? Like you're not going to like bike all over the neighborhood by yourself or anything. So it's a little bit, so my mindset is always a little bit New York.
Yeah.
So.
But sometimes I just don't understand how, because now, like, you know, my kid goes out and I can see where he is.
Yeah.
I can see where his phone is.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah.
You know, because
yes,
you have the find my iPhone and then you just see where he is. So it's like, and sometimes I cannot believe that I will just, when I was little, I would just go out and play and spend the whole afternoon with my friends playing, and my mom didn't know what I was.
Yeah, that's never happened to me. I think so.
You know,
fascinating.
just like, and I'll just come home and come dinner time, I'll just come home and yeah.
Do you see yourself staying in Iceland forever?
I think so. Although I have this idea in my head of, like, you know, spending winter time in a warm place.
Yeah.
And summertime in Iceland.
A snowbird. Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
I think that'll be really cool.
Yeah.
Yes, because particularly, and I know it's coming up, like the past 3 winters, for some reason, like winters never affected me, but the past 3 winters have been really, particularly the last week of November.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God.
Interesting.
You know, I don't know. Is the darkness, is the like so tough to get out of bed?
Yeah.
During the last week of November.
Okay. Have you tried to switch up your routine a little bit to maybe help with that? Or
I have, but it's just still difficult.
It's still you're like that doesn't make a difference.
No. I don't know. It's just that last week.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's triggering something for you.
It's triggering something. I don't know, it's just the lack of sun and the lack of I don't know.
So it's a good time to go on vacation, it sounds
good
like.
time. Yeah.
It's like every year we are leaving at this time, so I'm not.
Yeah, no, every November we leave it.
And it's just nice because you can come back right in time for Christmas, and then it's like very
after,
festive.
exactly, festive, and after the 21st of December, you know, psychologically, you know that the days are getting longer.
Even if it doesn't feel like it.
If it doesn't feel like it, because just like you know, after the winter solstice, it's just a few seconds a day.
Yeah. Until all of a sudden after January, it's like, wow, there's light outside more.
Yes, exactly. And then it happens like really fast. But
yeah. It is true. January is the toughest month in terms of waiting for that like transition, because you're just like, we're almost there, and it's a long month too, and there's storms, and like it's like really the storms, like we don't need a snowstorm right now, or we can plunge down to like -15 randomly.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yes. Do you remember, when was it? I think it was 2 winters ago, when we had like -14 for 7 weeks straight.
I remember, because I also, like, that winter I went to Greenland as well, which very cold, but you're expecting it to be cold, right?
Exactly.
And it was as cold in Greenland as it was in Iceland. I was like, but we're not even in the Arctic Circle. Like, this is ridiculous. And it was hard.
It was hard. It was hard because 7 weeks straight with -14 was, it was
not my favorite. But, you know, it passed, and thankfully. But recently, the last winter was quite mild, actually, a little bit.
Yeah, it was mild. But we have, you know, snow, and we could go skiing, and it was cool. But it was
you're
mild.
into a lot of activities, a lot of hobbies.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what other ventures do you have on the horizon, if you can share them?
Well, at the moment, we're really focusing on UGrow. And, that I have another consultancy with my husband on the side, and we have some IT consultancy. We do the projects there. And
is this IT based or?
Yes, IT. Okay. He's also in IT.
Yeah. Is that how you nerd out together with IT?
Maybe.
Okay, great.
Over data management.
Over data management?
No.
That's how you talk dirty to each other, is data management. No. I'm joking.
No, but I think, now it's like, you know, focusing on UGrow and focusing on making UGrow grow.
Yeah.
Okay,
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that continues to grow and be a smooth venture.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
we're having a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for people who are living in Iceland and who are women who are in the tech sector, make sure to check out
WomenTechIceland.com. Yeah. There. And we also have like a Facebook group where, it's like a private Facebook group where, you know, women come together, and you can, from finding jobs to like, if you need help with anything, and just finding a peer, finding someone to talk to. Yeah,
it's a great community. I'm glad that is.
It's a great community.
Continues.
Indeed. Yeah. Indeed, and we have like plenty of events coming up. Yeah, one happening on the 23rd of October.
Yeah, and you also have like when people are pitching ideas, like startups and things like that, right? I remember going to something. Maybe it was
we did a business accelerator for a few years ago.
Yes. Okay, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that's not currently part of the.
That's not at the moment. It's not currently part of the events that we're going to be having having this year.
Got it.
Yeah, but we're still working on putting together the agenda for next year.
Okay.
So yeah.
So maybe.
Who knows?
But before we end off, this is an important question. It's the most important one in the whole interview. What is your favorite Icelandic word or phrase?
Ljós til lífin.
Ljós til lífin.
Yeah.
Okay. So
you know
lights. I'm trying to think what til lífin. Ljós light. Til lífin. So light of your life or something? I'm not sure. No.
It's actually the words, like 3 words put together, used for the process of photosynthesis.
But okay.
Once you get like behind that and you separate the words, you see that they actually mean from light to life.
Okay, that's why my brain went to like light of your life, something like this.
Exactly.
So it's photosynthesis. Okay. I was like, it's photosynthesis, but it's words put together to make photosynthesis that actually break down like literally
like from light to life.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't think I've ever thought about the Icelandic word for photosynthesis. I'm gonna be honest. So that's
actually like my oldest told me that word.
Yeah. So ljós til lífin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ljós til lífin.
I think I was saying the middle wrong for some reason. I didn't hear till for some reason.
Yeah.
But okay. Interesting. I've never heard that one. Meaning like as a word that people have as their favorite. So
yeah, I just like it because, it reminds me of the effort that Icelanders are putting into preserving the language, and how, the creative process of creating a new word so that they can preserve the language.
Yeah.
And then understanding like the actual, like from light to life.
Mm-hmm.
What is the word used for photosynthesis?
Yeah.
It's like very like, wow.
Which is literally it's very accurate, right?
It is
as well.
It is.
And on a really random note, I remember Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about like if there was ever an alien race that came, or alien beings that came to the United States. Of course, they only go to the United States, but to Earth. That's what I'm trying to say. That what if they were like beings that use photosynthesis to feed themselves and like live, and they see us and they're like, think we're barbaric for like killing living beings in order to survive. And I was like, oh yeah, that does make you think that like
if I were like an alien, I would come to Earth. I would talk to fungus, mycelium, because it's like all connected, like all around the planet. It's just connected.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's a whole different thing. Like
you get a very different story.
Yeah, and we don't really know what mushrooms are. We don't know how to classify them.
Yeah.
We think they are like in the, we don't know whether to classify them as a vegetable or an animal, because they are the beginning and the end of the life process, the life cycle. Yeah. We need them for life to happen, and then we need them when we die, or to decay and to decompose organic matter. So it's like we don't really know where to place fungi and mycelium, and we don't know. And it's like I was learning about this a few weeks ago, because actually when you go into the forests, or when you go to Hedmark, like the mycelium on the forest floor is aware of you. It's aware of you walking above it, but we don't know. And they're like, and we're eating these things.
Yeah. I mean, well, maybe they have conditioned us.
Exactly. That's also a thing that I was discussing with a friend of mine. Like maybe trees, they need us to breathe CO2 so that they can.
And they're willing to sacrifice some of them, to be it is. Similarly, because I have listened to or watched some and read sci-fi stuff that really talks about like in the future this, or how things that seem really simple can be a lot more intelligent, right? So even like comedy wise.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah. Have you seen like recently? It's been all around social media about octopi. That they found this like a village, like in a place close to Australia, like there's just a bunch of octopi is living there, and they live like in communities. And
I didn't know about that. No,
I really think the octopus is going to take over.
Well, they are very intelligent.
They are very intelligent. So I think they're just going to take over the planet.
Yeah, dolphins too, if they wanted to. But apparently, dolphins are really sadistic psychopaths. So they're just like they're too concerned with themselves. But if they put their mind to it, I think they could actually take over as well. But it's true. The more we learn about what we have always considered to be. I wouldn't even say simple, but just like below us. Let's just put it like that, right?
We're wrong.
Right. 1,000%. This conversation has gone in a totally different direction. But fascinating and feeding on both of our curiosities about the world. It's just like sit here and chat about science and Anyway, but it's been really lovely chatting with you.
Thank you so much. Likewise.
Yeah. And thank you so much for sharing your insights, and also for fostering this community for women in tech, and in general being a great role model for women in business, entrepreneurship, and continuing to help Iceland not only just integrate but grow and expand, because we need continuous voices, diverse voices, in order for Iceland to become the country that we're all talking about, that we want to be in. I think it's definitely got a great foundation.
Yeah, and thank you for showcasing all of that.
Yeah,
how different Iceland can be. Yes, that's really important.
Thank you.
Yeah, to showcase all these very important people.
Yeah, including you, right? Love it. Thank you, Valentina.